Meeting is back in session.
All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine and non-controversial by the Township Council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or member so requests it, in which case the item or items will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. One motion signifies adoption of all resolutions, receive and file letters, correspondence, reports, and approval of minutes and applications. Not part of the consent agenda are Resolutions 6, 7, Correspondence 1, and Correspondence 4, which requires separate council action.
Correspondence 2, I'll read that.
Okay.
Is there a motion for consent agenda?
Motion.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Conti, second by Mr. Camilleri, all in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Passes unanimously.
Then we have Resolution Number 6, payment of bills, Costa Engineering.
I'll make a motion. I'll
Mr.
second.
Halper, second by Mr. Conti. Roll call.
Councilman Camilleri?
Yes.
Councilman Conti?
Yes.
Councilman Halco?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer?
Yes.
Council President Samuda.
Abstain.
And we have Resolution Number 7, payment of bills, Corner Nursery.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Second by Mr. Conti. Roll call.
Councilman Camilleri?
Yes.
Councilman Conti?
Yes.
Councilman Halco?
Yes.
Councilwoman Mazer?
Abstain.
And Council President Samuda.
Yes.
Correspondence number 1. Mayor's
Correspondence
proclamation.
number 1. This one, Mayor, do you mind if I read this? Correspondence. It's proclaiming June 8, 2014 as ALS Awareness Day, whereas amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, better known as Lou Gehrig's disease, slowly paralyzes the muscles while leaving the mind unaffected and completely aware of the body's deterioration. And whereas each year over 5,600 people in the United States are newly diagnosed with ALS, for which there is no known cause or cure. And whereas the ALS Association of the Greater New York Chapter is dedicated to providing services and to aid research in finding a cause, treatment, and cure for ALS. And whereas the association is dedicated to increasing public awareness for ALS and advocating for assistance at the national level, now therefore be it resolved that I, Karen A. Chamberlain, Mayor of the Township of Saddlebrook, do hereby proclaim June 8, 2014 as ALS Awareness Day in the Township of Saddlebrook, and urge all Saddlebrook residents to support the work of the Greater New York Chapter in its efforts to find a cure and provide much-needed services to patients and their family. That's dated June 5, 2014. And again, Mayor, what time does the walk start?
Walk starts at 11, registration's at 10.
Okay. At Saturday?
That's Sunday.
Sunday?
Sunday,
Today's the 5th,
No.
6th, 7th?
And 9th?
Saturday.
It's what'd you say, the 8th?
I mean Sunday.
Sunday.
It's the 8th, Sunday the 8th. Registration
Busy
at-
weekends, obviously.
Registration,
Graduations.
Sunday's the 8th, yes. Registration at 10, walk starts at 11.
Yes.
Okay. And correspondence number 2 is dated May 20, 2014, from the mayor to Commander Ray Heffernan at Romaine Siniger Post 3484. Dear Mr. Heffernan, as per your telephone conversation with my secretary attached, please find a copy of the signed contract, which will serve as an invoice for your membership's donation of $12,000. The Township of Saddlebrook will pay the balance of $1,500. Again, I want to thank you and your membership for approving the donation of $12,000 for our annual fireworks display. Again, thank you for your continued support and dedication to the Township of Saddlebrook and community at large. Sincerely yours, Karen Chamberlain, Mayor. That, again, is July 3rd. We're having that. The VFW put up $12,000. The Township put up $1,500. We'll be providing police and sanitation services.
Yes, and if I may add, Council President, the reason for the increase is that because of the growth of the trees now over by the lake, our fire prevention individual, Mike Seitz, is concerned about public safety. And now these are digital fireworks, where previously they were done by hand. So that's the reason for the increase. It's for the safety of the public
And I
and
forgot-
the enjoyment of the public, so we don't have to do without them.
We will have police personnel, sanitation personnel, and again, thank you for our ambulance corps and volunteer fire department, volunteer ambulance corps and fire department for their attendance and obviously making sure that everyone is safe and sound.
Motion to receive and file those two.
Okay. Is it- Motion to
I'll make a
receive and file?
motion to receive and file.
Mr. Halko, second by Ms. Mazur, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we receive and file correspondence 1 and 2.
And we have a mayor's appointment that requires advice and consent of the council. It's Howard Mulder to the Library Board of Trustees.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Halko, second by Ms. Mazur. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Passes unanimously. Okay, I think that's it with that, right? With old business, I guess, Rob, this is a good time for you just to give a relatively brief, I guess, overview of the progress on the projects that you are now working on.
They're all finished. No, just teasing. As far as Veterans Field, the coordinates I sent the council, they asked me on Tuesday night to send the updated sketch that should have gone to everybody. For whatever reason, Councilwoman, yours always gets kicked back. So I don't know why, but I can't.
Yeah,
it won't go.
you have
Oh, I
to
know
change,
why.
you have to change her
I know why.
email because she can't get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I called her.
Not that I left you off the list, but it just, for some reason, it gets kicked back. The coordinates went over to GEOD in order for them to finish up the mapping for the aerial. At that point, I'm going to have to come back into the council for a final decision on final design, and then once we get that, then we can go forward. I'll contact the county. As far as the grant application, Pete and I did meet with them, and I said that I would update them how quickly we can get the specs and the design finished, and get it in the queue, obviously, for us to reapply for next year's money in order to get more money towards this project, which I'm confident we're going to get. Pete isn't as confident as I, but I'll continue to call them until they give me something. I'm a little, they'd rather give me some money, this way we'll stop calling them. That's where we are there. As far as some of the stuff tonight, before I get further into projects, I sent an email to Joe Femia. It actually did go through. I had to walk outside for some reason. To set up a meeting early next week to discuss two topics. One is the railroad crossing at Midland. I think Brian was actually going to reach out for county council in order to set that up. I also, on the engineering front, I contacted Joe Femia in order to put that together also, to keep the railroad. Actually, somebody from the railroad contacted me yesterday. Tom, yes. I don't know why. I tried calling him back.
And it was Tom.
It was Tom.
Just for the public's knowledge, we had a work session on Tuesday, and representatives from the railroad were here, and they were here for probably 45 minutes discussing issues with regard to both the maintenance of the railway in terms of Midland Avenue mostly, and also the delays that are caused by the trains stopping in the middle of Mayhill, Saddle Road, and Midland.
Also, I think that they were here because they need a resolution from the council to help them with a DOT grant money in order to do some work. So they need something from the community. And what I got out of that meeting was that I'm a jerk, and then the council basically went into how disrespectful they are to this community. So I think if you press the issue right now, and I'm sure the council will, and if I press it from the other side with the county, I think we can finally get that stretch of roadway at least fixed at a minimum. And then work with Tom and the signaling to make sure that the signals work. To get back on projects, Cambridge, Pete, you should have the number for Cambridge as far as the bonding that we're going to need. The field work is complete, the base map is complete. We're going to start with the design, so that is in the queue. I'm hoping to get that back in front of the council for the next meeting, and then get authorization, if Pete says I can, in order to go out to bid sometime, I guess 60 days from now, that would be on the street.
Is that going to be
Yes.
for the special meeting, Rob? Is that what you're talking?
It's up to, as soon as Pete tells me that
We'll
the
have
money.
first reading of the ordinance
Right.
next week.
Next-
Second reading will be July 1st.
And then we can.
So I think
All
our
right.
plans, and I think everything will come together with that, that'll be out on the street and be
So June.
constructed in this year. The next undertaking will be the money that we got from public service, roughly $400,000, in order to start the drainage work at the south end of town by DPW and correct that stretch down there. I know Brian was in contact with one of the property owners for easement agreements that currently take place, and we're going to need some access agreements. And from my understanding, That negotiation went very well, and that property owner is absolutely will work with the community in order to let us access
Which project is that?
the drainage, to fix the
Drainage.
drainage between the PSE&G substation and President Street.
And have you spoken to the county on Floral Lane, the traffic light?
No, that is going to be my next priority next week, is to push that and get that complete for
So
you,
you think
Mayor.
you'll have some information for
I
us
promised you
next
a couple of
Thursday?
things, and I fell a little short, that's one of them, and I will put the pedal to the metal, and I will get that done and get that in motion to get that construction started before the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I know I have to work, and I believe the council authorized Mr. Chakowski to get started with the acquisitions. We can't really get there at this point until we have a final sign-off from the county as far as the alignment of the roadway. But I'll certainly speak to Brian tomorrow, send him an email.
Let me just stop here. Is it anticipated that on Midland Avenue, there's going to be a turn lane?
That is
In addition
correct.
to the traffic light itself?
That is correct.
And what kind of turn lane? From which direction, where's it gonna turn?
Southerly, turning onto Floral.
It's gonna be a separate lane southbound, and like we have on Caldwell, which took 100 years to get, but finally got that arrow.
Correct.
Is there gonna be an arrow there?
There will be.
There'll be an arrow.
But again, it won't be
Promise.
immediately, I promise. I promised the other one, and it
Okay.
took place. Took some time, but it's there.
Oh,
I turned it on. I apologize, I heard bells. I heard birds last week. As far as public service, there was a meeting last week, which I filled in the council on Tuesday night. They should have contacted Brian yesterday as far as getting account information. They will be putting up another $220,000 in order to replace the water main on Second Street. And we are currently in negotiations for Fourth Street and Jefferson. So that'll be further down the line. But those pipes need to be replaced because of the proximity of their infrastructure to our infrastructure. And again, Pete, we need to get a meeting early next week.
I talked to the auditor, looking for next week, and a few of the other people. Also, we need an easement agreement, you and Brian, they keep calling me, and we need that agreement taken care of, so after the meeting.
Whatever we need to do with public service, we will take care of. I'm trying to think, I think that's really the only thing out
What
there.
about 46 seems
Oh,
to be
Rob,
46,
an ongoing issue?
yes, thank you.
Wait, which easement agreement, so, Steve, for public service that Brian has to get back to?
I guess it's the lease, right? Is that what he's
That's
talking about?
one. Brian's aware of it. I think he needs information from Rob, that's where it's been left.
No, it's from public service.
To Brian?
Well, this is
To you?
going around, they're calling me, so maybe you guys.
This has gone around and around. Actually,
Get it together.
and just for the council and the public service came back with an area of a lease for Russell Lane, and the area encompassed the entire piece of property. So Brian sent it to me, I called Brian back, I said, this isn't correct. They're only taking a small portion in order to park 25 cars or 30 cars. They don't need 3+ acres of land. So they were supposed to redo that sketch and send it back to Brian. I don't know if they did. I'll certainly follow up with that.
I spoke to Mr. Calderon, he advised me that they came in, they put down the rocks there.
From
to
stone.
Give themselves the stone
Right.
for the
And I said to
parking.
Karen Dillon from Public Service, really, if you want to put a temporary fence around it, this is your area, and this way, they control it and they monitor it. So that should be worked out. I think that's pretty much it.
46.
Oh, I'm sorry, Route 46. I contacted Andrew Yassa, who said he went out there 2 weeks ago. I couldn't get out to town today. I called Mike first thing this morning. Mike went there and he said nothing was done. So I have to contact Mr. Yassa tomorrow. And he also informed me that he's leaving NJDOT and he's going to work for Public Service Electric and Gas. So now, the first contact we had became the second contact, and now he's given me the name of another contact to handle this. So I'll have to reach out for the new gentleman tomorrow and try to reschedule this and get this accomplished.
Okay.
I will put all my powers in play. If I have to take a ride to Mount Arlington with Mike and meet people and put our face in front of people, we will do that. Also, this isn't really engineering, but just to say one thing, what you said earlier, Mr. President, as far as the children, I know Anthony and myself, in our junior year, we lost 3 classmates at a junior prom, so it happens, and be careful out there.
Old business that we have not already talked about.
I have 2 items.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to try to clear up, it's still confusing to me, and I'm concerned about the pumping station down at Mayhill Street. Okay, I'm concerned for myself and my whole neighborhood. I want to know for sure those pumps up to snuff, and I understand they work fine under normal conditions, but now I'm talking about when the heavy rains come and stuff like that, because my house has been affected, my whole neighborhood has been affected, not with flooding of rainwater, but sewerage backup. And, you know, that's part of our infrastructure. So I don't want to let that just slip by the wayside. If there's a problem there, we need to put some money into that pump house.
All right, if I can, and again, I've spoken about this for some time. I know there was a question the other night as far as, is there an issue with the pumps right now? There is no issue with the pumps. What happens when we get these severe rainstorms, this station cannot handle the additional infiltration and additional inflow that goes into there.
Okay, so what do we do right there to handle that, you know?
Well, I mean, there's a few things. First thing, you can inform the public. If you have a sump pump that's hooked into your sanitary sewer, disconnect it.
Good
I know
luck
it's,
there. Good luck.
again, here, there's an old saying, you can take the sanitary out of the storm, you'll never take the storm out of the sanitary. And you can go in and you can be aggressive and do smoke testing and all of this to find these people. But again, the minute that ends, it could go right back to the same condition. So really what you have to do is plan for this excess water that goes in during storms, because you really can't, even though they want you to, you can't really police the other side of it. We have an issue with the force main. We cannot get in there and clean that if there is grease, if there is a capacity problem there. The pumps, when they were redone, the pump station was redone years ago, it went from 100 horsepower pumps to 110 horsepower pumps. So really, all that money was spent to get to where? An additional 30 horsepower, which did not accomplish the goal that they set out for. When it was designed, there's no easy access to clean out the wet well. So where all of the effluent goes in before it's pumped, you can't get in there very easily and clean it out. It goes through the muffin monster. What happens when you get high storms? And again, any of the council that wants to go there, I've been in this pump station probably more than I've been inside my house. The water comes over it, runs around it, and any of the stuff that's in that sewerage obviously makes a mess and sometimes clogs some of the intakes. So it needs to be vacked out and cleaned out almost every single time that we have this issue. I feel it's an emergency. The auditor feels it is not an emergency. We go out for 3 quotes, we get the 3 quotes, and we have to do it. But the last time it took place at night, it's a 30-inch pipe that comes into that station. The plug came out, and it was like a torpedo and ripped the crane off the back of a vehicle. And if somebody was in there, and again, I put this on the record, I've said this numerous times, you're either going to kill somebody or someone will drown in this station if this continues, because it seems like these storms are more and more and more, and you have to do this work more and more and more. Solution is to put a valve. You can shut the flow very easily, go do your work, come out. But you're talking about, obviously, not a tremendous amount of money, but it's in excess of probably $150,000 to cut this in. It was never done when they originally did it. In order to clean the pipe, you have to put in what's called a pig, which is almost like a styrofoam torpedo. There's nowhere to insert the size you need to clean the force main because the pipes inside are smaller than the actual force main outside. So we have that issue. You need to cut in more valves in order to be able to insert this thing to clean that pipe. So those are two issues right there. Until you do those two things, I don't think it makes sense to start spending more money to upgrade the pumps to keep going, because again, we're not the only game in town. We're the head of the class. So we're the first pump station, then we get to Lodi, they hook in, then you have Woodridge, they hook in, and then you have a portion of South Hackensack, they hook in. And this little highway goes for 7 miles until you get to Passaic, and then it dumps into the Passaic Valley system. So it's an issue. I've said this for many years. The best solution, and again, I'm told it's going to be a difficult solution politically and whatnot, is to have Saddlebrook have its own line, make a right-hand turn, either head up the railroad tracks to Maywood and tie into the BCUA system. That would be the best for this town. It would be by yourself, you control it, you own it, and you have nobody else in there unless you want somebody else in there with you. And again, but you're talking obviously millions of dollars to do that.
Doesn't the BCUA, don't they have some capacity issues?
No, they do not.
They have problems?
I spoke to
That's what I've been
I spoke to, again, I spoke to Eric, when this council said set up another meeting, they are absolutely willing to set up another meeting. He told me they had no capacity issues, that they were going for increased capacity because Edgewater, they're taking that offline and they're pumping from Edgewater back into the plant.
Through the chair, isn't it during a storm event that they have capacity issues?
I'm told-
That's what we're hearing,
I'm told,
that they have infiltration issues that even the state is cracking down on them to resolve.
I will call him tomorrow.
Can you find out?
I will,
Because
absolutely,
that's what we're
because,
hearing.
again, when
Well, Rob,
When we
how
started
about you
this-
don't call them? How about you call the state? Because,
Well, I don't think the
everyone's gonna
chief-
say that they're wonderful, but the state is the one that's, we've been
Yes.
told is cracking down on
Cracking
them
down on them.
and is maybe
I-
hitting them with some fines.
I can't imagine that the chief engineer would not tell me what's going on. I know him personally for many, many years, so I
You think
can't
he's gonna-
imagine.
You think he would tell you that his
I
system's
think he would say,
horrible?
we don't, I'm
Good.
positive he would say to me, we don't have the capacity.
But they do. They do have during normal conditions. They don't have it when it rains. And that's what you really need to look into.
Yeah, I would check with the state
Okay.
first.
I mean,
Now,
I'll
let's get back to
certainly-
the emergency situation.
Bottom line.
We talked about this
Andrew,
before.
but
Yeah.
the bottom line is, it sounds like we need to reinvest some funds into that pumping station.
Tell me about the emergency. You said you think it's an emergency. I think when we talked the other night, we all said,
Well, we're not,
when is this gonna be done?
Here's what
And
it
you
is.
said yesterday, I
It
said,
ranges
that sounds
from,
like an emergency.
no, it ranges from $4,000 to
What we do.
$8,000. Go ahead.
We try to get 3 quotes. I asked Rob or Mike, try to get 3 quotes.
Right.
So we have an idea of what we're spending. Gets the 3 quotes. If it's an emergency or has to be done, it's done. Mike got the authorization as soon as we got the 3 quotes. It's on the council meeting tonight.
Okay.
Confirmation. I think what Rob and what we're mixing up is PSE&G and some of the work they're doing that might impact our infrastructure. Is that considered an emergency? We're talking
That's a
tens of
different,
thousands of
right, that's a
dollars.
different
I
story.
think that's what you were talking
But
about the other night.
here's.
But let me finish.
Go ahead.
I think what Councilman Camilleri is talking about in the council, and I think we all need to know, a proposal for immediate work this year on the pump station, be it Midland, Mayhill, Marshall Lane, because the things you've talked about, we need to know cost estimate, your fees, we have to go out to bid.
Right.
Is it an emergency? I think, until we know that, we have to respond to this. I think that's the first step, is give us a proposal.
No problem. I think, this is where I think we should start first. Again, it's up to council. I think we should absolutely cut a valve into that pipe that comes into the station for numerous reasons. One, this is happening more and more, and if you keep that wet well clean and you keep these pumps clean, then I think it'll operate obviously at a higher level, because what happens if the grease gets in there, then the pumps cannot pump as efficiently, and maybe you can only move 2.5 million gallons of water instead of 3.5. You can't get to where these, ultimately where these pumps should be pumping during these conditions. So that would be the first recommendation, to do that. And again, you're probably looking, Pete, about $150,000
I need
to
it
do.
right.
No, I understand that, but I mean, this is the kind of money we're talking about, so the council knows.
That's gonna help what Joe's concerned about, and we're all concerned about, obviously. Correct?
Even if you start today, and let's just say you can put a new force main in, I don't think that's gonna happen in the next 6 months.
Not force main, we're talking about
No,
pigging, putting
cutting,
in
right. Then I
the
think you need,
valves.
at that point, you need the other valve in order to be able to launch a pig to clean the current force main
But
out.
Bob,
Those are the two things you need
Wouldn't
to
you do that
do.
at the same time?
Yes.
I mean.
Once you open it up, once you're there,
open it
do
up,
it,
you
do
put
it.
2 valves in.
So give us a
Right.
cost estimate.
Okay.
I mean, that's gonna, anything to help. It's
Yeah,
gonna help.
absolutely.
We know there's a problem. We gotta figure out. how to
That's
do
what
it.
I would recommend doing.
Prevent the,
I would do that immediately.
Very good.
All right. The
Joe,
only-
you had a second thing?
Yeah, the only second thing was, I guess is more directed at Pete on that grant for Vets Field. You were gonna look into if it's definitely for the field. Could we extend it? Could we use it for something else over there besides the field itself?
I'll double check. That was discussed. When we talked to them, they said no.
They said
I'll
no.
check again and
They,
that's it.
Pete and I were actually there at a meeting with with Adam Strobel and
Bob,
Bob Abitamarco, and that's
we
it.
asked that question.
That's where Veterans Field, for what you proposed, is where that money can go to. And if you don't start or get your acting gear, that money is gonna be gone. And that's exactly what they
So
said
you
to
could not use
us.
that for the high school field day?
That's what they told us that day.
We asked that
That's-
question
They,
months ago.
they said you gotta use it specifically for this. If you don't show sign of doing something, they're taking it, and what happens, they put it back in a pool of money, and then they distribute it outward. That's why they said to us, and again, Pete isn't as optimistic as me, but there is a little bit of a pool of money left over from this year that'll be available in 2015 that we could apply for. And I feel confident, because I asked him prior to this meeting, I'm short, I need maybe $300,000-400,000 more. And first they groaned, then he called me back, he says, come down, get Pete and come down for a meeting, and that's what we did.
Then they threw us out.
Well, they threw us out, but I mean,
That's because of you.
Plus,
Absolutely.
besides what's left over for this year, there's a new pot coming next year, right?
well, they're
Open
saying
space.
that we could apply for next year for this project, and basically, they would come back into it, so.
What happened, the mayor and I had met probably 2 years ago, when this first came up, because the plans were there, and it was for Veterans Field, and the application was in, they had monies left over from other towns that hadn't used it.
Right.
And we ended up with the 300, the 402,000.
The 400.
Correct.
Because of that, and a few other towns. And it was shovel-ready, we're ready to go, and the plans were there, and that's how we ended up with the 402 to begin with.
Right.
It came from other towns that forfeited their money.
That forfeited the money, which is something we don't want to do.
Right.
Because it's not that easy to get
So
these
whether we
almost
get-
$500,000
Whether they have that kind of money
grants.
again,
You know, we met with them. for
remains
quite
to
a
be
bit of
seen
time.
when we put our application, and we'll find out.
What about bathrooms over there? That would be out of the picture, that's not the field, it's, because, we have to face it too. We can have a beautiful facility, and I'm a man, I don't really care about going to the bathroom in the porta potty. Well, you take the women over there,
No question.
And bathrooms, to me, is another need,
He should be able to rehabilitate what is there. I mean, when Lou Varelli was part of the recreation, we had price quotes. In fact, Lou had been there, yes. If you go where right now is storage area, we had proposed through Lou and Renee, and we were working on it and planning to utilize the funds that were there in the funding that was fundraised before we even had this grant. If you go in there, Joe, and Lou had the plumbers there, we had people there, we can rehab the existing one and make a handicapped one. And then additionally, so to keep it simple, we have the one in the house. That's one. We were adding two to where the storage area is, the old barn, so to speak. So if you go in there and look, the plan was for utilization of the funds we had, the set-aside monies. We should have been able to get mats down at not a large cost. We have the old gas blow heater that hangs down from the ceiling, okay? Lou also met with AC firm to put like a window air conditioning. So in other words, bottom line, what I'm saying, to rehabilitate that wouldn't be as costly, and Rob may argue this with me
What's
because
that?
I was out there at Veterans Fields. I was out there with you as an engineer. I think Lou Verelli may have been out there at the time when
No,
we met.
architects, there was quite a few of us out there.
A lot of professionals, okay? And I'm looking at it from a different point of view. I'm looking at taking the shell, refurbish it. You can do it without spending 800,000 or 500,000 or 200,000. I think if we were looking at anything, it would have been 100. And that would do the trick, because we need wrestling, we need cheering facilities, and we would have those 2 bathrooms available. We'd have the handicap and the other. And to put a wall air conditioning would suffice. We don't have to go with sophisticated equipment. I think the goal of the council, we're all on the same page, turf the field, particularly the drainage. And I understand the other component you're talking about, but I don't want to jeopardize the loss of over almost $500,000. And then, as Pete has spoken and as the engineer has spoken, we have the ability for other grants. So even if we appropriate another 100 to refurbish, okay, just from the council's, from our bonding ordinances, our ability, we could be on our way.
I think the way you gotta look at it.
But
is
you do have a valid point, and I agree with you.
We have a roof, we got 4 walls, we got a
That's it.
floor. You know, you can build off of that, if you need to have the bathrooms. I don't know, there is water? There's water there?
Yes.
I mean, you've
It's
got-
all there,
You've
Andrew.
got service,
The
you've got
idea,
electrical.
the idea was
The
not
heat's
to take space
there,
from the outside.
the
I think it was
water's
to put
there.
it right on the outside there, if I remember
Right, so this way
correctly.
you're not on the inside, you put it at the outside, sort of like Hasbrook Heights has at their stand. They have it outside. They've got, it's all concrete and everything. They got
Right.
3 urinals and a toilet.
Right.
And whatever the woman is. Okay, Joe, you good? Okay. Old, new business?
I have report old business.
Okay.
We had
Excuse me.
a resident in regarding Leicester Avenue.
Yes.
And the occupancy. Our building inspector spoke with our resident yesterday and also spoke with the new tenants. It's not a 24/7 hour operation. It's only Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Signs have already been posted for that railroad entranceway that Acme had formerly been using. So our resident is satisfied with the answers, and he even checked with our planning board attorney. It's the same use, nothing has changed.
Okay, so there was no reason for them to go to any.
No,
court for
it was,
variances?
evidently, it was just people talking and all of that. There was absolutely no reason. In fact, it was checked a few times with Allison. There were 9 bay doors there. It was zoned for that. There's only 2 employees. They've advised their truckers. The warehousing is non-toxic product.
Excuse me, sir, can you please stop talking in the back of the room? Not you.
And it's in compliance with the municipal land use and the zoning ordinances, and there's no delivery scheduled after 3. So
they
the
can't
hours
use-
of operation are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, no deliveries after 3 o'clock.
So they can use the railway right away?
Yes, I also discussed with Tony the fact that Brian was going to look at it, but since the former tenant there had the sign up, the new tenant put the sign in the same place, and they are using the railroad.
All right, very good.
Mayor,
Solves
did we
the
hear
problem.
back from the railroad? Did they say, because said they were gonna look into it and allow them to use that, did they?
They
Back
haven't
here.
I spoke to them
contacted
yesterday,
Tony.
but they're still researching it.
They haven't contacted Tony, and Brian was looking into that, but there is a sign up, and the trucks have been utilizing that as it was utilized by Acme.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, I do. I also have 2 items. One is if we can add to Rob's to-do list to check the timing of the lights on Erie and Market and New Paley Ave in Midland.
Again, they blew up.
Yeah,
You know what,
yeah.
probably from the storm the other night.
It just seems it's backing up, big time. And also, I'd like to commend the mayor for the hardball she was playing. She played with the railroad. Let's hope that it's long overdue. They've been tying up our township for way too long. In addition to the railroad, I have to say, in my opinion, I feel that billboard that they constructed on Railroad Ave there, even though it's not in Saddlebrook, I felt that they should have at least notified us what they were going to be putting up there. And I feel, again, personally, that it is hideous, and I wouldn't be surprised if there'll be a distraction to the motorists,
As well as.
as well as, of course, the residents there at night.
And you know what the aggravating part about it is, Flo? Is the railroad is making money on it.
I know.
You know, and they don't give anything back to Saddlebrook. Nothing at all.
I agree.
Well, my understanding is that they started that in about 2009, and they did
Mhm.
give notice 5 years ago, and it took a long, long time for them to construct it, so we may have forgotten about it, but they had to get some kind of approval, and they sent the letter out in 2009 or so. I don't know when their hearings were held, but it was held up for some time.
It's an
But again, it's a
atrocity.
long time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Done.
All right. We talked about the railroad. It was interesting, I didn't know that it worked that way, but what they explained was the signals or the arms come down when it realizes that the train is a certain distance away, and they anticipate the train is traveling, let's say, at 30 miles an hour, and it's going to get there, let's say, in a minute, so they'll come down. What they're installing is some new device that will actually measure how fast the train is going at the time it hits that point. Because if the train is only going 10 miles an hour, it's gonna take 3 times as long to, I can do my math, 3 times as long to get to that point, and we can cut the arm time down by about a third. Kind of new, kind of old, but next Thursday, we'll be talking about a bond ordinance. Two of the items that we anticipate putting on are the salt shed. We have an estimate from the engineer for, not cheap, $195,000. Now, again, we've been using Maywood Shared Services for quite some time. There were some issues with that. And also the roof at the DPW, since there is some talk about, well, we store our stuff there, so the roof is leaking. That's a $130,000 estimate. So we'll be talking about putting some stuff out to bond next week. So we are trying to take care of those issues. I have no further old business, new business, just to wish everyone a happy Father's Day.
Yes.
And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Ms. Mazur, Mr. Conti with a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Last unanimously,